Yasodananda Prahladananda Yasodananda Prahladananda Yamuna Tirha Vanacharya Yamuna Tirha Vanacharya Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Balaba Girivanadari Gopi Jana Balaba Girivanadari Yasodananda Prahladananda Yasodananda Prahladananda Yamuna Tirha Vanacharya Yamuna Tirha Vanacharya Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Vishnupad Paramahansa Brahmadakacharya Asadhara Satushi Shiman His Divine Grace Shalasi Bhaktivedanta Swami Maharaj Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Gaur Premanande Haribol, glorious to the sound devotees, all glorious to Shri Guru Shri Gauranga. Om Agyanatvarandasya Gyananjana Salakaya Chaksur Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutle Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Yadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurum Vaishnavam Cha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunatam Vidam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Prijana Saitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Visakam Vitam Cha Hey Krishna Karna Sindho Dinabando Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishubhanu Sudha Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vanchakalpa Trubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhyavacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Shri Krishna Chaitanya Pranityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaura Bhaktavrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Just, is this being recorded for the internet or is it? It is. YouTube. So just as a disclaimer, I just spent 10 or 11 days in Peru, South America, giving class in Spanish and speaking in Spanish. So if I throw in a couple of words of Spanish, it's not that I'm talking, not they're not necessarily English words. It's just I'm used to speaking Spanish now. And then I was speaking Russian also, Russian classes. So if you hear some strange words, it's not English words, they're different languages. But I'll try and speak English if I can remember. So here we are. Which verse is it? What's the verse? 9:15:25. Okay. 9:15:25. Savai Ratnam Tutadrishva Atmaishvaryatisha Yanam Tad Nadri Yatagni Hotramyam Shabila Sahaya Savai Ratnam Tad Tutadrishtva Atmaishvar Yatisha Yanam Tanadri Yata Gni Hotriam Sabilasha Sahaya Okay. Ladies. Sa Kartavirya Arjuna. If I indeed Ratnam, a great source of wealth, two indeed Tat the Kamadhenu in the possession of Janmagdagni. Drishva by observing Atma Aishvarya, his own personal opulence. Adishanyanam, which was exceeding. Tat, that. Na, not. Adriyata, appreciated very much. Agnihotriyam, in that cow which was useful for the executing the Agnihotra sacrifice. Sa Abhilasa, became desirous. Sa Haya Haya, with his own men, the Hahayas. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Kartaviri Arjuna thought that Jagamandagni was more powerful and wealthy than himself because of possessing a jewel in the form of the Kamadhenu. Therefore he and his own men, the Hahayas, were not very appreciative of Jagamandagni's reception. On the contrary, they wanted to possess that Kamadhenu, which was useful for the execution of the Agnihotra sacrifice. Purport. Jagamandagni was more powerful than Kartavira Arjuna because of performing the Agnihotra Yagya, with clarified butter received from the Kamadhenu. Not everyone can expect to possess such a cow. Nonetheless, an ordinary man may possess an ordinary cow, give protection to this animal, and take sufficient milk from it, and engage the milk to produce butter and clarified ghee, especially performing the Agnihotra Yagya. This is possible for everyone. So is any householder here doing that? Are they performing the Agnihotra Yagya every day? Okay, so we can note that. At least once every other day it should be performed, or maybe once a month. What about once a year? Once every 2 years? Okay. This is possible for everyone. Thus we find that in the Bhagavad Gita, Lord Krishna advises Go Raksha, protection of cows. This is essential because if cows are cared for properly, they will surely supply sufficient milk. We have practical experience in America that in our various ISKCON farms, we are giving proper protection to the cows and receiving more than enough milk. In other farms, the cows do not deliver as much milk as in our farms, because the cows know very well that we're not going to kill them. They're happy, and they give ample milk. Therefore, this instruction given by Lord Krishna, Go Raksha, is extremely meaningful. The whole world must learn from Krishna how to live happily without scarcity, simply by producing milk, food grains, anad bhavati bhutani, and giving protection to the cows. Go Raksha. Krishi Go Raksha Vanijam, Vaishya Karma Svabhavajam. Those who belong to the third level of human society, namely the mercantile people, must keep land for producing food grains and giving protection to cows. This is the injunction of the Bhagavad Gita. In the matter of protecting cows, the meat eaters will protest. But in answer to them, we may say that since Krishna gives stress to cow protection, those who are inclined to eat meat may eat the flesh of unimportant animals like hogs, dogs, cows, goats, and sheep, but they should not touch the life of the cows. This is destructive to the spiritual advancement of human society. Savai Ratnam Tad Tutadrishva Atmaishvar Yatishayanam Tanadriyata Tagni Otram Sabila Shaha Sahai Sahaha Sayaha. Kartavira Arjuna thought that Jagamandagni was more powerful and wealthy than himself, was possessing a jewel in the form of the Kamadhenu. Therefore he and his own men, the Sahayas were not very much appreciative of Jadmadagni's reception. On the contrary, they wanted to possess that Kamidenu, which was useful for the execution of the Agnihotra sacrifice. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Namane Namaste Saraswatam Deve Gauravani Bacharane Nirvishesha Srinivadi Paskadyade Satarane. Two things mentioned here. One is the performance of the Agnihotra sacrifice. But in this age, the performance of Sankirtan Yagya has replaced the Agnihotra sacrifice. But what is also significant here is that without the protection of cows, it's not possible to even, won't be possible even to chant Hare Krishna in the future. It's not that it's disconnected, because human form of life depends upon four different aspects, namely Dharma, Artha, Kama, and Moksha. In Kali Yuga, there is no Dharma and there is no Moksha. There's only economic development for sense gratification. But it's actually not really economic development for sense gratification, because without Dharma, there can't actually be real economic development. And therefore, there cannot be any real sense gratification, and there can't be any actually liberation. So without Dharma, nothing actually works. Of course, there's some element of Dharma left in society, otherwise none of us would be eating anything right now. Nor would we make any and without eating, we wouldn't be having any opportunity to come to the temple, because we couldn't function very well over a prolonged period of time. Now, the problem with modern society is that people have no idea what Dharma is, as it says in the Srimad Bhagavatam, the 12th canto, that tatascha nidinam dharma sattvam shocham dayashama valena kalyar rajan nakshat yayar balam smriti. That day after day, gradually, tatascha nidinam dharma will disappear. Dharma means the actual what we're supposed to be doing, which is inseparable from our actual obligation. Most of what people are doing nowadays is known as anartha, things that they're actually not supposed to be doing, which are actually detrimental to Dharma. They're cultivating anarthas. Now, tadas dharma, and it is not an exaggeration from the 12th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam that day after day, that Dharma will go down, because day after day, they're increasing their anarthas. For instance, there's no need, forgive anyone who's listening who's attached, there's really no need for football or soccer games. People could actually survive without them. To pay someone tens of millions of dollars to kick a ball, it's certainly a deviation from reality, what to speak of Dharma. And that's only one idea. They can actually spend billions of dollars on some movie. And even the movie is called an Avatar. It's a complete waste of time and money. And then they complain that people, they can hardly pay their rent. And even America is supposedly the most advanced country in the world with a $38 trillion deficit. They can actually have the nerve to waste their money spending hundreds of billions of dollars on entertainment and on sports. And why are they doing that? As our lawyer said, who used to be the Prime Minister of New Zealand, he said they do it simply to distract people, so that they don't think about what the real problems of life are. Or as Prabhupada said in one lecture, they're coming to the minister is being approached by so many people complaining that there's no rain, they're not getting enough food, and the minister is saying that don't worry about it, because we're going to have an extra channel on television tomorrow. So the fact is, anad bhavati bhutani is probably right. We're all existing on eating. Anad means grains, but anyhow, it means in general food. And killing the cow and the bull will guarantee us in the future that we're not going to be able to eat anything. That's the main reason why at the end of Kali Yuga, people eat each other, because there's nothing else to eat. And it probably mentioned, even when I was here, there's a groups of people who are eating their children now, the Rakshasas, and they'll continue to grow in the future as Dharma goes down. Why? It is not just a speculation or a sentiment or something said in some Srimad Bhagavatam. It's a reality. First of all, without the sacrifice of the holy name, there won't be rain. Without rain, there's no grains. Anad bhavati bhuta parjana anasanbhava jagna bhavati parjano jagna karma samudva. That everyone exists on food grains, which come from rain, and rain comes from sacrifice, and sacrifice is born of prescribed duties. The all-pervading transcendence situated in acts of sacrifice. Now, why would I make a statement that without protecting the cows, in the future people won't eat? Or what is my scientific proof? It is reality that because they've decided to kill the cow and the bull, still they need tractors in order to plow the land. Maybe if they had enough people, they'd use them as the cow and the bull instead, as the bull to plow the land. But it would be pretty inefficient. And besides that, most people don't have the strength to take the place of a cow or a bull. Now, because they had eliminated the cow and the bull, of course they used horses, but horses have some problems also that the cow and bull doesn't have. The cow and bull, their urine and their stool also fertilizes the land. So it takes away from the need of having artificial fertilizer, which is part of the problem. For instance, having a tractor. Tractor means you have to manufacture a tractor. They don't grow on trees, nor do they reproduce. We don't have a male tractor and a female tractor, and you get them together, they make little tractors, and then you feed them some gas and oil, and they grow up to become big tractors. So we don't have to worry about other things like building factories to produce tractors. But to build a factory to produce a tractor, what you need is raw materials. And you need machines to build the factories, which is kind of like the chicken and the egg, which comes first. Complicated. But then to get the raw materials, you have to build machines to get the raw materials. And in order to build the machines to get the raw materials, you need raw materials to build the machines. So then you have to get raw materials to build the factories, the machines, the tractors, the vehicles to move the raw materials. You need machines and boats in order to create the factories, to produce the tractors, and create the machines to get the transportation for the making the factories. It gets very complicated. Welcome to modern society with all the advanced technology. But actually the advanced technology is that in the demons, those who are actually directing the cow killing and everything else, they realize that ultimately it's not going to work. The only thing that's going to work is create robots while there's still people to create them and technology to create them, so that the people can create the technology for the robots and the artificial intelligence, so that eventually the people who are thinking that they're in control can get rid of all of us. That's the end game. Because the very progression of what's going on means that in the future, people won't be able to produce food anymore. Nor will their factories be able to produce the machines to produce the food. So they realize that. So the next step is get rid of all the people and just have robots. So the 5 or 6 people are left on the planet, the robots can take care of everything for them. And that's called progression. So we should all voluntarily sacrifice ourselves for the leaders, 5 or 6 leaders of society, so that they could enjoy themselves. So we should all voluntarily do that for this, the progress we're all going in, heading towards. So the fact is that once you need all this raw material, you have to manufacture so many factories, you have to have so much energy in order to run them, and so many mechanisms to repair them, just like the roads and all the other things necessary. It's not like you just need machines and cars and transportation, trucks. But you also have to produce the seeds, you have to produce the chemicals such as the pesticides, the insecticides, the herbicides, and ultimately the people sides. You need all these things for the thing to function. And that's 90% of what society is doing. And the other 10% is just entertainment to distract people. The fact that it doesn't work. All this also the propaganda, the entertainment, and the mass amount of communication to lie to people and delude them that everything's going all right. I think they call that, I don't know if you're familiar with the terminology, gaslighting. Everything's going to hell, and the politicians and all the so-called, what do they call them? Influencers. To influence people, either everything's going all right or everything isn't going all right, and they have the reason why everything's not going all right is because of the Illuminati. That's everything's, and then we get rid of the Illuminati who's trying to get rid of us, and everything will be all right. But actually, everything won't be all right because the very foundation of society is completely artificial and wrong. Namely, they're killing the cows. But I've never heard any influencer, including our own devotees, speak about how the basic principle is doomed to failure. Without cow protection, everything in the society is doomed to failure because economically everything is doomed to failure. Because not only you have the fact that you have to have machines, which are, Mother Earth is not going to supply all the raw materials forever for the demons on the basis of cow killing, as evidence in the fact that the very nature of what they're doing is they're polluting the air, they're polluting the water, they're polluting the food, they're polluting the ether, full of lies, propaganda, misdirection, waste, exaggeration, etc., etc. And so what's going to happen, which is happening, is that there'll be less and less food and more pollution. And we won't be eating food anymore, we'll be eating chemical compositions that look like food. And people will get more and more sick, which will aid the medical industry to produce more and more chemical medicine to kill us quicker. So that's the purpose anyhow. Get us addicted to their pharmaceuticals so we can spend more and more of our income in the pharmaceuticals so we can't digest food anymore. We just take 40, 50 pills every day and spend all our money on that until finally they get rid of all of us. And then that's called science. Science of how to get rid of people. Now, the example is just like the Brahmin I've said before. The Brahmin he was engaged fully in devotional life, and he was living very simple. He only had a pair of underwear. But he was very clean Brahmin, so every day he'd take off his underwear and wash it. And then bathe in the Ganges. But one day a mouse came and stole the underwear. So now he didn't have his underwear anymore, but he was attached to it because he was embarrassed. Brahmins are not supposed to be naked in public. He wasn't a Nagabaga. He was a real Brahmin. So then he begged another pair of underwear, but he couldn't sleep at night because he had dreams of mice stealing his underwear. So he had to find a solution to it. So luckily, it was at the time when IA, was it intelligence? Automatic, was it IA? Artificial intelligence. It was still, so he utilized it, and artificial intelligence informed him that cats can take, if he had a cat as a bodyguard, he could protect his underwear. So he begged the cat because he didn't have any money, but somehow or another, some generous person donated a cat to him. So now he could sleep at night. But then he found that the cat kept on meowing, so he couldn't sleep at night, and he couldn't figure out why the cat kept on meowing. So he went back to artificial intelligence, which informed him that cats need milk to survive. So then of course, he was using artificial intelligence while it was available because these things were quite esoteric at the time. So then he found out that cat milk comes from cows. So he had to beg a cow, but he didn't know how to milk a cow. So he found out through some friends that there was one lady who lived nearby who knew how to milk cows still. This is kind of futuristic. So then he got married to the lady because he had to reciprocate with her. So she was milking the cow, he gave to the cat to protect his underwear. So things were going pretty well for him now. Except the fact that his wife wanted some children. So now he had to get a house. But that was complicated because houses don't grow on trees. So he had to get a job. So now he had a house, a wife, and 2 children, and a cow and a cat to protect his underwear. But to go to the job, he had to get a car. But he had to work at night to afford the car, the house, the wife, the 2 children, the cow, and the cat to protect his underwear. But finally, because he couldn't work enough, he had a mental collapse. So the bank came, repossessed his car because he couldn't afford it anymore. Took away his house. His wife and children left him. There was no one to milk the cows, so the cat died of hunger. And finally, mouse came and stole his underwear. He realized he couldn't get another. Even if he got another one, he couldn't afford it. So he just walked away. So that's modern society. The future, the past, present, future. So it's not an option that we need someone to plow the earth, to produce the grains, and we need the seeds, we need the fertilizer, we need so many different things. We have people to harvest the grains and distribute them. So unless it's localized, it's not going to work. Unless people are growing their own grains and vegetables and everything else, it won't work because the transportation and all the ingredients necessary to provide the all this artificial society, maybe in our lifetimes or in some near future, it's all going to collapse. And the few people who are left, they're going to have cows and bulls, whatever is left, to plow the land, to produce the fertilizer, because the cows and bulls produce the fertilizer. They can also harvest the grains and everything else, and crush the grains. You don't need all these factories and all this whatever is necessary to run them. It's all going to collapse in not such a distant future. And the only people who are going to be left to chant Hare Krishna, the people who have the means to produce the food to survive. So don't read the newspaper tomorrow, that some president somewhere came up with a solution by increasing the interest rate or invading some country with their armies, which is also expensive, and getting a big donation from another country, all in the name of liberating the country from all their resources, actually. Well, actually, that will be the solution. There's no solution. It's simply a question of who's going to survive longer. So again, of course, our society, we're not very much inclined to protecting cows nowadays. And if we do, our protection of the cows is usually some families, they donate money to so-called protect the cows, which is good, which is better than nothing. But we don't, in the present state of our society, ISKCON, which may have some idea what's necessary to protect what's necessary practical for survival, but to speak of chanting Hare Krishna, we're not in a position to have what's necessary to protect cows. We can hardly protect ourselves, what to speak of the cows. But what we do have to do is chant Hare Krishna and become serious about distributing that Krishna consciousness to others. Matter of fact, Chaitanya Maharaj said, whoever we meet, it's our duty to try to help them become Krishna conscious. Then when there's sufficient number of devotees, and there's some people who actually have the strength left to protect cows and the inclination to do so, then we can actually set up real societies rather than rely upon our so-called progress or our so-called education, our so-called jobs that we have that are all artificial and have nothing to do with reality. Most of them have nothing to do with reality. They're just manifestations of the fact that we've deviated from Dharma, and therefore we've created more and more artificial ways of controlling things in such a ways that people don't notice that the whole society is going to the darkest regions of existence, and we're going along with them, and that we're simply exploiting other regions in this planet, whatever resources they have, so that in this so-called modern society that we have enough resources left to survive in the struggle for existence. But it's all artificial. It has nothing to do with producing real food grains by people in local areas who are able to utilize the resources and not destroy the planet, destroy their consciousness, and destroy everything else along with it. Anyhow, with that happy thought, I'll stop there and see if there's any question. In other words, if we're not engaged in occupation, which is actually ultimately going to protect the cows and other living entities on this planet, and we think we're making money, well, yeah, we are making money, but that money is being utilized to exploit other people and stealing their resources, or exploit whatever resources are left due to our sinful activities. So we may get so many titles, we may get so much money, but that money, when all the resources run out, we're not going to be able to eat. Especially U.S. money is not edible, so it's not really going to help us very much. What to speak of digitalized energy? And then to buy a banana in the store you have to be a millionaire to buy a banana. Yes.
Thank you so much, Maharaj. Wonderful class. I was hearing yesterday from Srila Prabhupada. He said the animals, they live and they go get food. And you go work and then you get money. Then you go get food. He was saying how silly this is. And so I was thinking, this is the purport of that statement. I have a question. Okay, so we're grihastas. We live in a community. We're in the middle of downtown Dallas, serving Radha Kalashanji. And yes, we can see that these things are happening in society. How do we prepare ourselves? How do we move towards being we're relying on these things? How do we go from not relying on this system to becoming actually free to live Krishna consciousness in a farm?
You mean personally, each one of us? Or who are you aiming at? Well, let me say this. Those who have any intelligence left, which is not so many people left on this planet, most people have lost all their intelligence, real intelligence. I'm not talking about ability to make a machine, create artificial chemicals, send rockets into space, create missiles. Mostly it's being used to create missiles and armament to kill people. But that requires intelligence also. Misdirected, but requires intelligence. Those who have some real intelligence left, some spiritual intelligence left, are very few. And the general plan should be to help other people become intelligent, who are willing to become spiritually intelligent, to see the actual reality of what's happening, and get them to chant Hare Krishna. Get them to try to reduce their mark on this, try to get them to understand what's, from the material point of view, what's valuable. Eventually, even if they can't perform it, at least support those who actually have some ability to, for instance, protect cows, farm the land, produce something actually has some value to it. If you took away that understanding, going to the movies, going out, watching their Netflix or whatever it is a waste of time. It's simply bewildering and deluding and misdirecting ourselves. So, and the only way people will understand it if they chant Hare Krishna.
I so much like this answer, Maharaj, because I was thinking, to one sense, the question says, should I go run into the forest, like Arjun is asking? And you're saying, nope, our duty as devotees is the Sankirtan movement.
Right,
so
that's the only hope.
So let's stay and preach.
That's the only hope. It's distribute the holy name, distribute this philosophy that's found in Prabhupada's books. Try to get people to understand that, I forget the terminology, but zero net game or something like that. That it's a zero game they're playing. It's simply going to get worse. It doesn't matter who's the president, who the lead. If they don't understand this, whoever we're listening to on YouTube or whatever conference we're going to, if they don't understand this, they're wasting their time and they're wasting our time. They're going to equally starve with their philosophy as we're going to starve. Anything else? You have to expect this when a sannyasi comes and gives class. It's not supposed to be materially encouraging. Everything's all right. The Republicans are going to save us, or the Democrats are going to save us, and the Independents are going to save us. This YouTube person is going to say, they're all going to send us to the same place that they're going to. Yes.
It's really Kalashanji's mercy. Yesterday there was class and we were talking about running to the forest and we were talking about the problems in life, but we really didn't want to touch it. And then you came in and you just gave this purport about it's it's coming. So it was pretty amazing. Thank you.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. Thank you for actually, in a sense, not making it glossy and glamorous. But I'm just curious, you've been traveling so many different countries. This aspect of cow protection, do you see it come to life more actively in some other parts of the world than in America?
Well, we have a minister in this kind of cow protection, Kalakantabru. But as far as the overall picture, because cow protection is just part of the picture of Krishna consciousness. In itself, just protecting the cows or protecting that is insufficient. Without Krishna consciousness, it doesn't work at all. Because we have no intelligence. We don't know why we're doing these things. And therefore, we're begging people, for instance, Indians, by nature, they have some idea of cow protection. So we beg them to give money to protect the cows or buy the milk or whatever else. But unless they themselves are chanting Hare Krishna, following the regular principles, and getting a higher taste in Krishna consciousness, after a while, either their generation or the next generation won't know why they're protecting the cows. And they'll just give it up. So without actually giving people the opportunity to become Krishna conscious, and they're actually employing it, then the result is it's just going to reach a dead end also. Because when they get hungry because of all the society collapsing, they don't know why it's collapsing. They don't know why they're what the alternatives. And therefore, they haven't prepared for it, so they'll wind up, if necessary, eating the cows also, rather than protecting them. So it goes all together, beginning with Krishna consciousness, and that will develop the intelligence why we're doing these things, like why cow protection is essential, not out of sentiment, but out of reality, of just eating something, getting something to eat so we can actually chant Hare Krishna. Now, everything else in this age besides chanting Hare Krishna or helping spreading Krishna consciousness is basically sinful, whatever it is. And therefore, it's all these things are going to wind up the same place, zero, without introducing Krishna consciousness. Doesn't matter, Hatha Yoga, Astanga Yoga, whatever, all these other yogas, whatever they're doing, all this astrology, everything else, is all going to wind up in the same place, zero, no food, and dying out of starvation, or eating your children, or whatever. So the basis is spreading Krishna, becoming Krishna conscious ourselves. Otherwise, we'll have no reason to spread it. Unless we're Krishna conscious, why we'll give it to others? We don't. And if we give it to others, we're going to give them something empty because we're empty. We haven't got anything from it, so what are they going to get if we give it to them? We don't explain, unless we have some realization of what we're doing and actually doing it with realization. So therefore, Prabhupada would introduce sadhana bhakti. Every day having class, every day chanting Hare Krishna, every day worshiping the deities, every day trying to serve the devotees, every day trying to purify our hearts and try to purify society. These 5 powerful processes, without them, none of them probably it's not going to be possible to continuously do any of them. Although it's possible just by chanting Hare Krishna, it also requires intelligence how to do it, which requires it every day hearing Srimad Bhagavatam, and then applying it by worshiping the deities and spreading Krishna consciousness to others, and trying to trying to live in a society of devotees where all these things can go on. And we won't live with each other unless we develop a service attitude based on Krishna consciousness, find all these other factors. But the morning program is essential, or else nothing's going to work. We may think it's an option, I can come to the morning program, or I can have my own program in the house, it's just an option. No, without it, we're going to wind up starving to death. We're going to wind up going to the darkest regions of existence also, because we'll be forced, or voluntarily, enthusiastically, follow all the other ones who, lemons, I think there's a brand of animal, who are happily, enthusiastically running to the cliffs and jumping off, and all the other ones are following them. So again, chanting Hare Krishna relies on the 5 powerful processes, which rely upon executing them every day, and then seeing how to practically apply them with our body, mind, and words, which is what Prabhupada gave us. Even we want to go into Rasika Bhakti and hear about Krishna's esoteric pastimes, but we can't understand them, most of us. No one else can understand them, or just be deviated by them. They won't perform sadhana bhakti because they think they're liberated. They're liberated into the darkest regions of existence. And the result is they all collapse without the basic sadhana bhakti every day, trying to understand what this world is all about. Because most of us can't live on, most cars don't run on fumes, and most of us are not going to live in this body simply in, imagining that we're something, a gopi or something else in the spiritual world. You have to do something practical also. Anything else?
We got online community that can ask questions. And so this
Okay.
question comes from the online. How can we bring about awareness, especially among the devotees, of the reality of the world? Bye-bye.
Again, it gets down to this. Every devotee who gives class has some realizations about what's going on. But the highest level of realization comes from Prabhupada. So we should hear from Prabhupada and hear from those who have gone to their realizations and see how to practically apply it. But ultimately, Prabhupada has warned us. He didn't come to the Western world, and establish farm communities, Gurukul, and everything else, expecting that, these are just options that we could just accept or not accept, point out all the deficiencies of the devotees who try to set up farm communities or Gurukul or even the BI, the Bhaktivedanta Institute, and claim that they're failures and that doesn't apply to us. Well, it's all right. We can think like that. But the result is we're all going to starve to death eventually. Our children will starve to death. And we may have to come back to get the results of what we're doing somewhere. We may even go for our pious activities, however we're chanting Hare Krishna, go to some heavenly planet for a while, but we come back in an inopportunity time, and we have to get the results also of what we're doing now. Back to this earthly planet, for instance. So what to do? Sadhana Bhakti. Every day sadhana Bhakti. But we should try to see from Prabhupada's vision, from those who have seen from Prabhupada's vision, because my vision is not complete, but try to see from what we have to do practically in this world to have a future for ourselves and for our children. Because it's not just our children. We're eternal. And therefore, whatever we're doing right now, we're going to have to come back. Even if we're doing the most pious activity, chanting Hare Krishna and engage in devotional service, but we're doing other things too. So we're all going to have to come back and reap the results of the other things we're doing too. Does that answer your question? Okay. Anyhow, it's a complete picture. It's not just, I don't have all what to speak, even if I can give the class the whole day, I don't have the whole picture. I just have some of it, but I think it's an important part of the picture. All right, thank you very much. Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Gaur Premanande.